the meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the world body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We're going to round the week off with an eyewitness account of the protests that have been building in Sri Lanka for the last 3 months, but finally this week swept the government and the corruption of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa from power. If you've seen the images from Colombo, you'll know this was an exercise in raw people power, a population rising up to say enough. Dr. Farah Mailar is a lecturer in conflict studies at Exeter University, a British Sri Lankan academic and human rights activist.
The protests have been incredibly inspirational. I was there a month ago. I was part of it, as have been so many of my friends. This is not a protest where, you have unruly mobs attacking places. This has been a protest where people have been absolutely fed up with a government that has driven the country down and driven the country dry of foreign currency, caused an economic crisis, put people on the verge of starvation. Now, of course, as with every political movement, you have elements that might be, you could call them extreme, you could call them perhaps bordering violence, but largely the protest movement has been amazing. It has been peaceful and they have been successful.
But now the hard work starts, restoring some semblance of confidence in government and rebuilding a Sri Lankan economy that is on its knees. It is far from clear that the caretaker Prime Minister, now also acting president, has the confidence of the people either. The main news again, President Biden in Saudi Arabia has generated huge controversy by greeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman with a fist bump. For the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK next week, and more protests are expected in Akron, Ohio, after police disclosed 25-year-old Jayland Walker, gunned down by them last month, was shot 46 times. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
I recently signed up for one of these self-defense classes and brought along a camera crew to watch. Take a good look at this class instructor.
Thank you very much.
Boy, was he smooth. He tried to butter us up with flowery compliments like, good work, nice try.
Yeah!
But don't worry, folks, I wasn't letting my guard down for 1 second. Maybe he wasn't planning to attack me at all, but he could potentially plan to attack me at some point, and that left only one option. Take him out first. This is him. This is the guy. My quarry approached, and when the moment was right, I struck.
Oh!
I knew he'd be able to counter my every move if I just did what he had taught me, so instead, I did exactly the opposite. I beat him with a baseball bat.
I am Shelby Cross! Do not ever attack me!
Now, folks, I acknowledge that this man may have never been a threat, but a potential threat is just as dangerous as a real one. I don't play games with my life, and neither should you, and that's it.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. The phones are open for you. If you want to join us, you can do that at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. And in the studio tonight, here with you, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
So, lots to talk about tonight. Apparently, right-wing extremists, quote-unquote, according to Slate, which is a pretty leftist publication.
Oh, yeah.
Are using two-way radios to plan violence. We'll get into that story here. Chris has it on the way
They're not
tonight.
talking about us, are they?
I would hope not. I mean, although certainly people have mislabeled us as right-wing, we are liberty-minded, which means we actually believe in the freedom to control your own body as well.
Anybody who
pretty
doesn't...
much anybody to the right of Stalin, they figure, is a right-wing extremist these days.
Seems like
anybody who doesn't agree with the left is a right-wing extremist, basically.
But that's the thing. We agree with the left on some things. It's
Absolutely.
just they don't want to talk to us about those things, apparently. And we'll get into your phone calls and thoughts. Of course, you can bring up absolutely anything that's on your mind tonight here on Free Talk Live. But there's been some news in the crypto world. We actually haven't covered the crypto headlines in a while here on Free Talk Live. So this one's been pretty big news, and it's affecting a lot of people and their money. It's a company called Celsius. Have you guys ever heard of them?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I've covered them before.
Have you? Okay. So Celsius, we have talked about them in the past. I just didn't know if it was on the show with you guys or not.
Yep.
But Celsius is what they call a centralized finance platform. And that's as opposed to decentralized finance, which is this big buzzword in the last couple of years. DeFi, or again, decentralized finance. The idea behind decentralized finance is you can get, let's say, a loan in cryptocurrency in return for you putting in essentially a collateral of a different type of cryptocurrency. And this has benefits for certain individuals who are looking to, say, take their Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or something and turn it into the equivalent of dollars in the form of, say, a stable coin, which is a crypto token that's in many cases backed by actual dollars, without actually selling the Bitcoin. So the idea is they put their Bitcoin down into this DeFi contract, and then they get out from that a stable coin, usually a fraction of the value. So if you put in, a whole Bitcoin, you might get a fifth of the Bitcoin's value out in stablecoins. And that's kind of how the decentralized finance thing works. And it's all governed by what they call smart contracts, which are as immutable as the contract is, right? So sometimes the contract might have a bug or a backdoor or something like that, and certainly people can be taken advantage of in those circumstances. But generally, as long as the contract is open source, meaning that anyone that knows coding can go and read the contract, then in theory it's pretty ironclad. The money is kept safe. There's no third party that has the keys to it, and as long as you pay back the loan, you get your collateral. Get your collateral back. That kind of thing. So that's a basic level understanding of what DeFi is. And by no means am I an expert. But there's other things that they do. So centralized finance does something similar as decentralized finance, except they're doing it as a centralized corporation. So there's no decentralization at all. It's a corporation run for profit that offers people a certain APR or an APY or whatever. They say, you deposit your Bitcoin with us and we'll pay you 5% per year on it. And if you want to take out a loan, you can take out a loan as well based on that Bitcoin. And it's convenient for people because it's a centralized company. You pass through the Know Your Customer rules and deposit your Bitcoins and off you go. Unless, of course, they have piss poor management of the coins that you put into their company and they poorly invest them and or throw them away and lose them, or somebody steals them, or the government comes in and raids their their treasury. Basically, all of those things can happen.
Yep, or they go bankrupt.
Well, and the reason they're going bankrupt is because of piss poor management of the customer funds. So the story here is Gizmodo.com. Celsius filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection late Wednesday, leaving users wondering if they'll ever again see the money they put into the crypto platform. Unfortunately for the average user, they'll have to wait in line with the company's other creditors, something that was made explicit in the platform's incredibly shady terms of service, which, of course, probably no one read before they actually opened up an account. Celsius also allowed people to buy and sell cryptocurrencies like its native token, they called Celsius, gained attention for offering as much as 18% interest on crypto, an absurdly large return for any asset. The company first paused withdrawals for its 1.7 million users on June 12th, but assured people they would still, quote-unquote, accrue rewards during the pause. So they were trying to keep people from panicking,
right?
Basically,
I mean that's kind of humorous considering you're filing for bankruptcy, right? So you presumably
they weren't at that time.
Okay,
at that time they just well we have to pause.
But why were they pausing?
They didn't really come right out, if I recall correctly, and
it's because they were preparing to file for bankruptcy.
They had to pause the withdrawals because they didn't have any money, right? Like that's the most obvious answer. They had run out of funds. And at that time, it made a lot of headlines at that moment because a lot of people obviously were very frustrated. But whatever rewards were accrued in the past month is imaginary money at this point, as Celsius customers will likely have a hard time seeing any of their regular money coming back, let alone the supposed interest earned on that crypto. Celsius, for its part, is still trying to put on a happy face about all of this, even through bankruptcy. In an email sent to their users, they said, quote, "These Chapter 11 cases provide the company with the best opportunity to stabilize the business, consummate a comprehensive restructuring transaction that maximizes value for all stakeholders, and emerge from Chapter 11 positioned for success in the cryptocurrency industry."
It's funny. On the one hand, I could maybe see that for some other type of company. But a cryptocurrency
You mean
company?
a company with assets or something that they could do something with?
Yeah, maybe, or I don't know, some sort of
just a software platform,
right? Some sort of value, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure I'm seeing that here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chapter 11 bankruptcy is the reorganization form of bankruptcy. So
they're not liquidating yet.
No. So in order to get a Chapter 7 protection...
Chapter 11?
I'm sorry, Chapter 11 protection, as I understand it, they're going to have to convince a judge that they may eventually become solvent again, and if they can't do that, then they'll be forced into the other chapter.
Okay, so just because they've filed for it doesn't mean that they're going to get it?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. If they can freeze those assets, if they can delay the case long enough, they might just be able to come out when
just
crypto
because
goes
Bitcoin might go up again?
Well, I'm almost certain they ended up in a short position, or... I'm sorry, not a short position, a long position in Bitcoin, but a borrowed long position. That's what left them insolvent in the first place. So if Bitcoin goes back up, they could end up solvent again. I mean, my understanding is they've recovered a bunch of money from Mt. Gox, and people who had money on Mt. Gox may end up getting a lot more money than they technically had on the books when it disappeared, because Bitcoin's worth a lot more than it was then. So if you had 100,000 on Mount Gox, it's like, somebody made you hodl until now.
Wow. Yeah. I remember, for listeners that don't know, Mount Gox was basically the first crypto or Bitcoin exchange. There was no other cryptos at that time. It was just Bitcoin. And I think, didn't it originally stand for Magic the Gathering Online Exchange, and it was for card trading?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the guy had no intention of being a Bitcoin exchange. It just kind of accidentally happened.
Yeah, and it became a huge success, and then somebody did some shenanigans, and I don't know what the backstory of what happened to Mount Gox is, but I always found myself wondering, did I ever have anything on Mount Gox? I feel like I had an account at one time, but I don't think I ever did any buying or selling with it. So certainly I have not gotten contacted by any whatever liquidators or whoever would be involved in that.
Liquidator Brunt.
There's more coming. I wish the best to people that are getting something out of Mount Gox. If you can get 10 years later, man, that's going to be a big windfall for whoever it is. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about this Celsius Corporation. It's what they call a centralized finance company, meaning they will give you loans in exchange. Well, they would have. Now they're bankrupt. But they would have given you a loan in exchange for you depositing cryptocurrency with them as collateral, and they would pay out an annual interest rate on deposits with them, some of which was as high as 18%. Of course, you could say, that seems a little too good to be true. Well, it turns out that their business model seemed like it was predicated on the price of cryptocurrency continuously going up, and God knows what other kind of risky endeavors they were taking with people's funds. Turns out once the most recent crypto crash, right, because there's been a variety of crashes over time, and over time cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, the prices have come back typically. But, you know, if you're running a business, you got to pay people, right? You've got expenses that you've got to deal with, and you can't do that. You're going out of business.
And not just that, but if you lend against a speculative asset like a stock or anything like that, there are nearly always call provisions, which basically means if the price does this, we're going to call your loan right now.
Right.
That's how people get in trouble short selling, because you short sell and maybe the price goes up just for a minute, but then you've got a call and you've got what's called a short squeeze, and you could be in some serious trouble. You know, even if it goes up and goes right down again.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. It's hard to feel bad for these people who are kind of getting, you know,
the customers, you mean?
Yeah, the customers here, just because it's like
1.7 million people.
It's amazing how many people will do, how do I say this, things that are, you know, pretty apparent, not, you know, probably
things
not
that don't make a damn bit of sense.
Make a whole lot of sense. Don't make a good long term or short term. I mean, maybe okay in the very short term, you know, it worked out, but in the long term, you know you're going to get bitten in this type of situation. This is one of these things where I have to keep, you know, saying, you know, when you put your cryptocurrency into somebody else's hands, okay, whether it's, you know, actual cryptocurrency or money like the US dollar, you give it to a bank or you give it to one of these exchanges when it comes to cryptocurrency, there's a risk of losing it. Yeah.
Well, that, and anytime you try to take advantage of a deal that's too good to be true, you're probably going to screw yourself. For example, say there's some insurance company that says, hey, we'll insure anybody for $1 a year. Well, you better not count on that insurance, because if that's really what they're doing, they're not going to be able to pay out when the time comes.
So they are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and their withdrawals are on hold and have been for apparently the last month. Gizmodo.com and various other news sources have been covering this because it's just the latest. You know, Celsius isn't the first company to go through difficult times like this with other people's money. And again, whether it's Celsius mismanaging funds or a government agency coming in and just taking money out of companies and shutting a corporation down or something like that for quote unquote whatever financial crimes, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe it's not even any of those things. Maybe they just get robbed. Maybe their cold wallet or whatever that is supposedly military secure or whatever it was. I don't remember what their claims were about their storage functions, but that somebody on the inside or whatever gets access to it, and they decide to put a backdoor into the system, and then somebody else comes in and they raid the whole treasury, and then before you know it, the place is completely empty or has lost half their funds.
I mean, let's back up a moment too. This was a regulated entity, right?
I don't know. I don't know what level of regulation. I mean, they're certainly not bank level regulated, but they may be still regulated as some sort of a financial institution. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's one of these things where it's like the argument is, okay, we need more regulation. Yet I'm pretty sure that the government would say that they are regulated.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Look, if somebody's selling Bitcoin on the street, if they're going to say they're regulated, how is it that this larger entity isn't regular? I almost got to say that this is something. This is kind of like if regulations actually protected people,
Oh yeah. What's a regulation going to do?
Well, right, and exactly, and this is the thing. It's like the way to teach people is sometimes the hard way, and that they got to learn a lesson. You got 1.7 million people hopefully learn their lesson in terms of dealing with other businesses and entities and things.
Yeah, and the question is, of those 1.7 million, how many of them did things like put their entire life savings into this? Because that's what people post online, right? You see those posts, they get shared around, like this was my whole life savings, I'm ruined. Suicide hotline numbers are being passed around on this.
You go to the doctor and say it hurts when I do that. Doctor says, "Oh, don't do that."
Yeah, this is another point. When it comes to investing, like 101, diversification. When you diversify your assets, you are not at as much risk, unless of course all your assets are in super risky investments maybe, but even then you're still probably not at as much risk from any one event. So
the guy from Berkshire Hathaway always says,
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, that's him. He always says diversification is for people who don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, yeah, exactly.
Like
most
everyone.
people don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure he gets advanced tips from the Federal Reserve as to what they're going to do, but the rest of us don't get that.
Yeah, there's two things. Educate yourself about what you're investing in and diversify. So
yeah, so one of the chat room trolls says, now they say crypto has risks, LOL. We've said the whole time.
We have, but that wasn't the risk.
Apparently
the risk was
this guy hasn't been listening to the show because we've said that the whole time too.
The risk here wasn't in crypto. It was actually in putting your money into crypto into some sort of exchange.
Well, and that was a different risk.
Right.
Yeah, that's a risk on top of a risk.
Right. That's
giving
that's
it
a
to someone
risk.
else. You're giving it to somebody else, someone who you don't know, to take care of.
And somebody with a business model that doesn't make sense on its face.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to happen. I saw those places too. I didn't put a dime into them because I said, yeah, that's going to work out great if the price falls. It was pretty clear what they were banking on when they said 17% interest or whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody can pay 17% interest. Realistically, unless their business model depends on
high risk,
that high risk.
Right.
And when I say no one can do it, sure, you can pay more than that on your credit card. I'm talking about
for a while.
A business model similar to this.
And they did do it for
in the
a while.
good times, and that's the thing with anything, right? Like, during the good times, you might be able to make that, but in the bad times, which will eventually come, things are gonna collapse.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is when you're designing a business model, you should know that things will go badly sometimes, and you better have some margin built in for that.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We've always said with regard to cryptocurrency, don't put in what you can't afford to lose, number one. Just as a general rule. And also, not your keys, not your coins. Meaning if you hand your keys over to somebody else, then maybe it'll work out for you. Maybe you'll never see them again. More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden in Saudi Arabia says he has told Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that the U.S. holds him responsible for the murder and dismemberment of Saudi-American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The president caused controversy by greeting the Crown Prince with a fist bump when he arrived in Jeddah earlier today, but in remarks after their meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the world body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones are open. You can join us right here at 603-283-6160. At 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
We invite you to our website over at freetalklive.com. You can enjoy the features there. Archives go back for many years. Just click and download at freetalklive.com. You can also follow our feeds, our RSS feeds, aka the podcasts, over at feeds.freetalklive.com. You'll find the links to those there. Also, links to some of the major platforms that you can easily access the podcast through. You can go to feeds.freetalklive.com and find those. And again, it's all totally free at freetalklive.com. We continue here. We'll take your calls and thoughts about whatever's on your mind. We've been discussing the failure of centralized finance companies. Now, they're not all failing at the same time, of course, but some who are paying attention ought to use the example of Celsius, which is now bankrupt and had been providing loans to people and so on, but then apparently mismanaging funds in the background. This is a canary in the coal mine moment. If you've got funds on not just exchanges, because that's the most obvious thing, right? We've talked about exchanges a lot in the past. Centralized exchanges gives custody over your cryptocurrency to somebody else, and the same thing is true of these centralized finance corporations that'll pay you an APY or an APR or whatever to annual percentage to hold your funds for you. Again, not your keys, not your coins. So if you at this time are into cryptocurrency and you have coins somewhere out there that you're not in control of, then you really need to reconsider that. You need to think about how, like, if you're doing it on an exchange, then understand that you probably should withdraw the coins when you're done doing whatever exchange things that you're doing. But of course, these companies want you to keep their coins with them. That's why they pay you the 5% or the 10% or the 18% supposedly, or whatever it is that they're offering, because they don't want you to take your funds back. They want to hold on to them so they can profit from them. And if it works out for you, that's great. But you never know when the other hat is going to drop. I think
it's the other shoe.
The other shoe. Thank you. You never know when that's going to happen. So it could be tomorrow. It could be a month from now. It could be 2 years from now. But if you really want to protect your funds, you got to get them off of these centralized platforms. Just understand the risk that you're taking. We go to Stephen in Georgia. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, so I have a little bit of a dilemma that I need y'all's help with.
All right, let's see what we can do.
So, as you know, because, libertarians and a group of other people, I've been in jail a few times.
Ooh, we couldn't make out what you said there. You might be in a bad cell or something.
So, a little bit of an issue. On the phone. A little bit of an issue. I have ruffled all the legal feathers. And so the sheriff here is refusing to speak to me. And is telling people, the sheriff from one of the counties around me is refusing to speak to me, telling me that I can't take my medicine, and is also saying that my medicine makes me domestic terrorist. Hold
on, let me make sure I just heard you correctly. He's saying your medicine makes you a domestic terrorist?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just let me see if I'm following what you're saying. Why would you have to ask the sheriff's permission to take your medicine? Is this because you are out on bail?
No, it's because
or probation?
We live in this really weird country where you can ingest chemicals all you want, but if you want to ingest a plant, oh no, we gotta have government permission to ingest plants.
But you're not on probation right now?
I'm not on actual probation. I'm on corporate probation.
Did you say corporate probation?
Is that like double secret probation?
I answer to a company.
Okay. So what does the sheriff have to do with any of this? I guess I'm confused as to why you would need to talk. Why would you want to talk to the sheriff?
It's a bad plan.
So, here in the state of Georgia, you can ingest CBD.
Okay.
Without any forethought, anything.
You still there? Stephen? Stephen? Going once? Stephen, I don't know where that was going to go. He's welcome to call back. We generally have a rule of only one call per night, but obviously if there's a technical difficulty, then certainly you can call back in, and I think he's doing that now. Stephen?
Hey, so in Georgia, you can ingest CBD without any paperwork, or you can ingest marijuana with a card. I have the card.
Okay.
So I'm legally allowed to ingest it per state law, However, the sheriff in Catoosa County, Georgia, is one, refusing to speak to me, and two, he's posting pictures of me with him, calling me a war hero, which makes me very uncomfortable.
Okay.
Are you a war hero?
And say again.
Were you ever in the service, or is he just crazy?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was in the military, and I came back, and he did this thing. Because, like, this is small town Georgia. So I have a picture with him when he was campaigning several years ago, back when I was a Republican and thought that Republicans wanted me to have freedom. Yeah, I was nuts.
Okay, but I'm still not clear as to why you would want to call the sheriff and talk to him about this. Why do you want to talk to him?
She's overstepping federal and state law, right? So there's state law that says, hey, I can do this. And he's like, well, I'm the sheriff of this here county. And, well, I'm a libertarian, and I'm an outspoken libertarian in this area. And he's sending people to my house to, like, pull by and put spotlights everywhere. He's just being crazy. So here's my question.
Just to clarify, he's sending people to your house, and he's the sheriff from the next county over?
So the counties have a joint drug task force.
Okay.
And so they're coming over because they believe that I'm bringing my evil marijuana into their county, and they're going to stop it, right?
And is it are they doing this because you are like a public marijuana user? You make a big big deal about it, or is it just they've got a list of medical patients and they're targeting all of them?
So he outlawed CBD, and when he did that
illegally,
I may or may. Yeah, he outlawed it illegally. Mm-hmm. He's been told it's illegal. He's been told he needs to stop. But I blocked their entrance into a CBD store.
You blocked their entrance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a CBD store that owns their property, and they didn't want these thugs on their property. And I liked them, and they're small-statured women, and they were like, hey, we're going to get raided at some point. And so I just hung out there. When the cops came, I was like, oh, I'm going to lock the door. And they didn't like that very much. And I waved at them, and I called them. So I called 911. I was like, hey, there's people in costumes, and they're brown, with like their brown shirts. And I know how the Nazis work. Can you ask them to leave now? And so that got me on their radar locally.
I see. Okay, so you are no friend to the sheriff's organization. So why are you trying to get this guy on the phone? What do you think that's going to accomplish?
I just want him to admit his hypocrisy.
Or that'll never happen.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to step down, really. Here's why. He's refused to talk to me about this issue, which means that he's refusing me the right to air grievances with my government, which means that he doesn't care about the Constitution.
Here's a question. Do you know if he ever goes on like local radio for an interview or anything like that?
He will next year during campaign season.
That's what you want to do, in my opinion. If you can figure out where this guy is going to be appearing, whether it be on a radio station or at a public event or something like that, somewhere where he has to be for, a half hour or whatever, where he has to interact with the public to some extent, then you can kind of call him out and have an audience around, get video of it. Thanks for the call. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up whatever you want. The number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Freedom's Phoenix. It's your source for all news, economic, government overreach, insane government spending, and more. You can get headlines from today all in one place and from a fresh libertarian perspective. You'll find that and more at freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. We're talking about the failure of the latest centralized cryptocurrency website. We've seen crypto exchanges go down. We've seen crypto exchanges be hacked. We've seen people lose millions of dollars in exchange hacks. That's been probably the most common version of centralized crypto systems failure over the last decade. Probably just exchange hacks.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm just trying to think how many of them have failed, or
some have failed. There was the one in Canada where the guy disappeared and ran away with a bunch of customer funds.
Yeah,
it sounds like he succeeded, actually.
There's definitely been...
It's just he wasn't trying to do what he should have been trying to do.
There's definitely been a few that have failed. There's a lot of exchanges out there.
Sure, there are.
Actually, it's surprising that more haven't failed, really.
There's probably plenty who have failed. You just don't know about it.
It's true, but
right?
but more well known.
Okay, more visible,
more
big
visible
name stuff.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this isn't really per se an exchange. Celsius, a company with apparently 1.7 million users and some amount of billions in customer funds, has gone bankrupt. And they said in their statement here, according to Gizmodo.com, quote, "We apologize. The communication with our teams and community has been very limited over the past few weeks, and we look forward to being able to offer greater transparency with everyone through our reorganization, which encourages dialogue with all stakeholders." Well, they have to be. They have to be transparent for that process because it's a court process and it's public, and all those documents are going to be available.
Yeah, I have to wonder, though, how two-way it really is. I suspect it's mostly one way, them sending messages to their customer base, but their customer base not really being able to send messages back and forth.
Right. No, this is what we're going to pay you. Here's what we've got.
Yeah.
The Celsius token has lost 79% of its value in the last 6 months, though desperate users have spent the past month trying a short squeeze by buying up as much of it as they can in the hopes of inflating the price. That effort has been little more than a doubling down on failure, essentially handing more money to the people who started the problem in the first place.
You can't outspend the market.
Mm.
And if somebody sees you trying to outspend the market, they'll take the other side.
Yeah, bad news for the folks that are involved in this thing. They had purchased a large amount of their own token since July of 2019, roughly $350 million. And this is some of the scummy things that were apparently going on in the background.
How are they even doing that?
Probably using other customer money.
The exchange is purchasing their own token.
Well, I don't know if they would be called an exchange, but the central lending house or whatever.
The central lending house is
central
purchasing their own token.
That's what they're saying here, about $350 million.
I thought the customers were purchasing more tokens, and I'm wondering how the heck are they doing that?
Well, some of the customers bought the token within the last several months, apparently, just to try to push the price up at a desperate attempt to stave off.
I thought they just failed recently.
Well, I mean, they've been failing over time. It's just they haven't talked about it, right? Like they have. I
got you.
As the Bitcoin price has gone down in the last several months, their business has become very, very difficult. Presumably, they just haven't been announcing it from the rooftops.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, they paused customer withdrawals a month ago, then got real quiet until they just decided to come out publicly and announce their bankruptcy.
I was thinking that the customers were, even though the exchange or the non-exchange was shut down, right? The lending service was shut down. Yeah. I was thinking people were somehow able to trade it still.
They are. The Celsius token. So a lot of these companies issue their own crypto, basically.
Right.
And then that trades on different exchanges, right? So those tokens are out there.
They can still trade them. Interesting.
Yeah, of course. The tokens are out there, right? Like even if Celsius goes under... Yeah, presumably the token will still exist.
How do I say this? I don't like to assume anything when it comes to this stuff, the centralized stuff, because half the time it's just a number in a database as opposed to like some sort of actual decentralized token mechanism, right?
Yeah, I mean obviously that's something you can research. I have never looked deeply into their token.
But you're assuming then that
I'm presuming
it's an actual token. It's separate from the exchange itself.
Okay, so yeah, it's on Ethereum.
Okay, so it is. Okay, so they can still trade it.
So yeah, they can go. The company can go completely gone. Like they could just liquidate everything and turn off all their systems, and the Celsius token will still be out there.
Right.
What it will be worth is another question. And again, it's gone down quite a bit. Well, the amazing thing is it's still right now 77 cents a token according to.
And what was it before they?
I have no idea. It was
the collapse.
It was up a lot more, obviously.
Yeah, I'm curious how far it went down. I mean,
it says it went down 79% in the last 6 months.
Okay, interesting. So that's very interesting.
But here's the thing: the company was using presumably customer money to buy their own token on these markets. So they were trying to push their own price of the token up. They're trying to manipulate essentially the price of their token using about $350 million worth. To make their own purchases out on exchanges elsewhere, according to Financial Times. But the founders of the company were selling like crazy in the past few years. Celsius co-founder and CEO Alex Mashinsky allegedly made some particularly large sales despite swearing publicly that their executives didn't sell their own token. Based on public blockchain data, it's estimated that Machinsky sold roughly $44 million worth of the Celsius crypto over the years, according to the Financial Times.
It sounds to me like somebody might well end up in prison over this, because that kind of misleading statement to investors and anything that you say if you've got a 3-letter job title is pretty much a statement to investors or regarded as such.
And if you're lying,
you can't be lying like that and expect to stay out of prison. That's just a bad plan.
All I'm thinking is he directed somebody to sell on his behalf.
That's still lying.
Yeah. Well,
right? Like if you're having an associate do it
I know
for
what
you.
the government's going to call that. I'm just saying. But it sounds like in his mind he's justifying it probably by having somebody else doing it.
Celsius published.
It could be. Some of these people in the crypto space have absolutely no business knowledge or experience, and I think that's what happened to Mt. Gox. The guy just didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Celsius published a YouTube video explaining what they're doing by seeking bankruptcy, and even gave a rosy outlook by noting all other companies that have filed for bankruptcy, or all the other companies that have filed for bankruptcy and emerged just fine. And yes, companies like General Motors and Marvel have filed for bankruptcy and bounced back, but those companies actually produce something. And that goes back to something you were saying earlier, Chris, is that what do these people actually have? They've got a room full of servers? You know what?
I mean, what? I mean, here's the question: why are your customers using you? It's because presumably they trust you. If you file for Chapter 11 and you're a company that is entirely reliant on trust, and
why would they trust
they can't access it for a while, they're not going to be able to trust you again. So why do you think you're going to be able to come out of it? Maybe some other company could, where the company's not holding customer assets, like probably with other companies maybe selling cars or something like that. But in this case, I don't know. I mean, this seems like you're going to be starting from square zero, which means you're probably better off starting another company to do the same thing. And sometimes companies do that, but that's usually when they actually have actual assets, not when they have nothing left.
Yeah, it's hard to see a road ahead for these guys. As a crypto trading platform, they didn't have a product. They took money from customers, kept hold of their digital money for them, and then they keep using the term monopoly money in here because Gizmodo, I think, is hostile towards crypto. And then they say, then the market for crypto tanked, and that money was worth a lot less. In some cases, coins became totally worthless. Curiously, Celsius seems to have deleted a video that was previously available and published in April of this year, right before they completely froze people's assets, titled Why Choose Celsius, which included influencers who were pledging up and down was the benefit of Celsius was its wonderful transparency. And then when they paused withdrawals, they got real quiet and there wasn't much transparency at all, apparently. Messages on social media are heartbreaking, with people explaining they really need the money that's tied up in Celsius's accounts, but at this point it's not clear how much there is left. One said, I'm a single father. I need my Bitcoin. Quote, to fellow depositors, do I understand correctly? There's literally nothing/no action we as depositors can take now? Just have to wait and see if they give us money back? If so, anywhere we should be keeping our eyes on? Yeah, I guess the bankruptcy court.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably want to talk to an attorney, and in order to be represented in a bankruptcy settlement, you generally have to make a claim in the bankruptcy court.
I'm a single mother. This will change the path of my life. I feel sick, wrote another. The number here is 603-283-6160. It is
people getting in over their head.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn, and hopefully people out there listening can learn from these other people's mistakes. And again, not your keys, not your coins. There's more coming up here, and you can join us. Chris, you want to get into two-way radios. Are they being used by the ultra-right to plan violence? We'll get into that story coming up, and you can take control of the airwaves here on Free Talk Live. Hour 2 is next.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen Line, 641-793-0191.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden in Saudi Arabia says he has told Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that the U.S. holds him responsible for the murder and dismemberment of Saudi-American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The president caused controversy by greeting the Crown Prince with a fist bump when he arrived in Jeddah earlier today, but in remarks after their meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the world body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We're going to round the week off with an eyewitness account of the protests that have been building in Sri Lanka for the last 3 months, but finally this week swept the government and the corruption of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa from power. If you've seen the images from Colombo, you'll know this was an exercise in raw people power, a population rising up to say enough. Dr. Farah Mailar is a lecturer in conflict studies at Exeter University, a British Sri Lankan academic and human rights activist.
The protests have been incredibly inspirational. I was there a month ago. I was part of it, as have been so many of my friends. This is not a protest where, you have unruly mobs attacking places. This has been a protest where people have been absolutely fed up with a government that has driven the country down and driven the country dry of foreign currency, caused an economic crisis, put people on the verge of starvation. Now, of course, as with every political movement, you have elements that might be, you could call them extreme, you could call them perhaps bordering violence, but largely the protest movement has been amazing. It has been peaceful and they have been successful.
But now the hard work starts, restoring some semblance of confidence in government and rebuilding a Sri Lankan economy that is on its knees. It is far from clear that the caretaker Prime Minister, now also acting president, has the confidence of the people either. The main news again, President Biden in Saudi Arabia has generated huge controversy by greeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman with a fist bump. For the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK next week, and more protests are expected in Akron, Ohio, after police disclosed 25-year-old Jayland Walker, gunned down by them last month, was shot 46 times. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Well, it's the end of an era and the beginning of a new one.
Today, Pennington's black part of town moved across the river to North Pennington. The Thompson family sold their home on the east side and moved to the old Kirkland Place at 17 Mansfield Place, establishing the all-new black neighborhood. Northside residents are looking forward to the infusion of fun and funk that the new black part of town is sure to bring to their area. Mayor Mitzi Kranowitz presided over the dedication of the new black neighborhood, unveiling a sign designating it a landmark district.
It's lovely, everyone. Pennington's diversity is its strength, whether it's Little Harlem or the so-called Gayborhood, where Paul and his partner Bryant have that cottage.
Sheriff Stevens today announced that the heavy round-the-clock patrols that helped make the old Thompson house one of the safest neighborhoods in town will move with them.
This has nothing to do with the black part of town moving here. We just want to make sure that everyone here has a comfortable place to live.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can bring up whatever is on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. In the studio with you, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
You can join us online. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the various features that we have waiting for you. Once again, that is freetalklive.com. Coming up, Chris, you've got a story about two-way radio technology. Apparently, according to the leftists over at Slate, they're saying hard right-wingers are utilizing the tech to plan violence. And we'll get into that coming up here in moments. Your calls and thoughts are certainly welcome, though. Let's go to your calls and talk to Matt on the line in New Hampshire. Hey, Matt.
Hey, how you doing?
What's on your mind?
I was calling in because yesterday somebody mentioned that I have a primary, in the Republican primary, and I just wanted to correct that error and just state that I don't have a primary. And
this is Matt Santanastasso. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. You are the one of the prime sponsors of the New Hampshire independence legislation that unfortunately did not get through the state legislature this year, but caused all kinds of controversy. And I apologize, I misremembered it. So it must be that your brother, who is running for the first time, he's the one with the primary challenger, right?
That's correct. He has an establishment pick for a primary. But yeah, I wanted to clear it up because there is two people running in my district, Cheshire 18. And I didn't want anyone to look up the other guy's name and think he was an establishment guy because he's not. He's much more closer aligned with us than establishment. Nice. He's a good guy. We've become friends over the last 2 years.
So they did some redistricting here in New Hampshire. Were you previously in a 2-person district, or is that a new thing?
Yeah, that's a new thing. Before I had 6 towns. The new district, because of the redistricting, I have 3 towns
Okay.
And as far as for electing Republicans, the numbers are better.
So, meaning you have a better chance of winning, and also I presume you don't have to go knock on as many doors if you're going to actually go out and do some campaigning, right? If it's only 3 towns?
Yeah, that helps a lot, right? Because Fitzwilliam was one of my towns, and that's a difficult town to knock.
Okay.
But
cool.
The second reason why I wanted to fix that error is because the establishment actually promised me a primary actually promised anybody a primary that voted for the secession bill.
Oh.
So a little bit disappointed that they were unable to deliver.
That's so great.
That was one of their many threats that went out there. So, it was gonna be a well-funded establishment candidate, and he's not here. So
He didn't even materialize. They couldn't find somebody, basically, is what it came down to, I bet.
Yeah, I'm certain that's what it was.
Yeah.
But they just make these threats about.
Is this because everybody supports independence?
Yeah.
It's got to be, right?
He said that. They specifically told them, if you support independence, we're going to primary you.
Right, and nobody wanted to primary, so everybody supports independence then.
Well, no one's wanted to primary Matt. That just means they couldn't find somebody who was willing to run. Matt, anything else you want to share? Sounds like you're on the road.
No, I just want to fix that error and give you those motivations on why I wanted to fix it.
All right, man. Well, we'll look forward to hearing good news from the campaign trail, and appreciate hearing from you tonight. Thanks for the call. Enjoy the ride out there. It sounds like he's on the side of the road. Might have pulled over to have a chat with us there. Phone number's here at 603-283-6160. Just to bring our listeners up to speed on that, the New Hampshire Exit Amendment, for lack of a better term, was CACR 32. It was a historic thing to happen. Yes, it only had 13 people voting in favor of not tabling the bill. So it never even got to an actual vote because it got quote-unquote tabled. And that basically means they put it on the table and then just ignore it for the rest of the term. So that's where it sits, I guess. I don't know at what point they throw away the things that are on the table or whatever, but the odds that it'll ever come off the table are pretty slim. We're going to get into the next congressional or representative session. That'll be next year. Presumably something else is going to be filed, and about now is when it's probably time for the state reps to start thinking about what's their next approach going to be, because there is a rule in New Hampshire that says you can only put forward the same exact bill once every 2 years. Now, I don't know how much you have to change the bill in order for it to be considered a different bill, right? So you can probably put forward some other sort of independence bill, but maybe it wouldn't be the same, proposed constitutional amendment, which is the direction that they went to this time. Maybe they can approach it from a different way. I don't know what they're talking about amongst themselves. I hope they are talking. That would have been a good question for me to ask Matt, but I didn't think of it until after he was off the line. I'm sure we're going to hear more about the status of independence. There's now a political action committee that has been formed that is trying to raise money to help candidates like Matt Santonastasso get reelected, and to help new candidates who've never been elected who support independence get elected. That's called the New Hampshire Independence PAC, and I hope that they can really get off the ground this year. So if you want to weigh in, you can. Hear the number 603-283-6160. So, Chris, you wanted to tell us a story tonight that the left-wingers are railing against apparently people on the right who are using two-way radios.
Yeah, I mean,
for nefarious purposes.
Apparently, people who are on the left don't use two-way radios. Who knew?
Well, the thing is, when they do a thing, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's when anybody who isn't on the far left does the same things they do,
then bad,
that they get upset. I mean, look at AOC, all the flutter because somebody said some rude things to her as she was going to work. And this is the woman who said, the point of protest is to make people uncomfortable. Well, they made you uncomfortable, didn't they? How you like it?
Yeah.
So I got a story here from Slate titled "Far-Right Extremists Are Using Personal Radios to Plan Violence. Is the government prepared to stop them?" My understanding is it sounds like they're looking to argue to ban or regulate radios, two-way radios.
They're already regulated.
I know that. But apparently the left doesn't know that.
Yeah, maybe not.
During
or maybe they want to increase the budget for the FCC, increase the enforcement division, crack down, that kind of thing.
I mean, good luck. They can't even. I mean, they already have problems enforcing like action against pirate radio stations, let alone two-way radio operators. I mean, it sounds like the two. Literally, probably they're talking about like the radios that you can go to Walmart and pick up.
Is that what they're talking about?
Well, I don't know. I know there's different frequencies, so maybe they're not talking about those radios specifically. But I mean, I don't know. Those are you can use those too. I mean, it's just a different part of the spectrum.
They tend to not be as powerful, so you're not going to get the same kind of coverage.
That's
with those.
True, but
you can use them.
But ham radios that they're talking about are already regulated.
Oh yeah,
and so you technically need a license to use them already. Correct. So what are they proposing to do?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Maybe actually enforce the regulations, which
maybe. But how are they even going to do that? I mean, the problem is they don't really have the finances or the means of enforcement, and it would be insanely costly to try to enforce it.
I'm sure they would be advocating for increasing their budget.
I mean, sure, but how much enforcement are you going to be able to do?
Good question.
During
It's hard to find these people.
Yeah, Hutchinson's explosive testimony at the January 6th Commission's hearing on Tuesday, footage was shown of that chaotic scene at the White House ellipse on that day, as an estimated more than 10,000 people lined up to go through magnetometers to
magnetometers.
Listen. Magnetometers.
That's the thing you go through at the court where they can tell if you've got any metal on your body. That's what that is.
Metal detectors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fancy word for metal detector.
To listen to former President Donald Trump speak. This rally would have eventually lead to the assault, as Trump exhorted to the crowd to fight like heck by protesting at the Capitol. Early reporting,
and also to march to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically, but Twitter deleted that tweet.
That's true.
The report also noted that many of them carried radio equipment.
Uh-oh. I mean, had the authors of this article ever used a cell phone before? Because that's also a radio.
It is. It really is. And you can do the same thing basically with a cell phone as you can do with a two-way radio.
Probably in some ways more effectively, but we can talk about that coming up here. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Are you about to meet the media? If you're about to be interviewed, do their homework for them. Know this about the person who will interview you. He or she is busy, so expect minimal, if any, preparation. He or she doesn't know as much about your topic as you do. He or she isn't as concerned as you are about getting your message out, so you need to take responsibility. Provide a biography and fact sheet, photographs, or other materials that tell your story. Reporters won't be put off if you supply frequently asked questions. Remember, Public Speaking 101, at the end of the speech, what's the one thing you want them to remember? You can download the document I supply to reporters who interview me and squirm through a video that demonstrates how not to conduct your media interview at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. In the studio here with you, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris. I want to say thank you to Rick Hall, who is the Free Talk Live Silver supporter of our AMPS program. You can join AMPS, as Rick has done, for as little as $5 a month over at amps.freetalklive.com. You get some cool benefits if you do that, and you help us advertise, market, promote, and support what we do here at Free Talk Live. So if you appreciate us and you want to help support Free Talk Live, please go to amps.freetalklive.com. Use your PayPal account or debit card or credit card to get signed up through our Patreon. Once again, it's amps.freetalklive.com. Chris, you've been sharing a story with us from, was it Slate?
That's right.
It was, where they are, they're so concerned. Some people apparently were in Washington, D.C. using two-way radios at the Capitol building. Now, of course, it's totally fine when the police are using two-way radios or the Democrats are using two-way radios, but apparently the right-wingers also have two-way radios, so something must be done.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. Indeed, during the dizzying aftermath of January 6th...
Dizzying? Aftermath?
Yes. That's,
is that why they're so dizzy?
Their choice of words. Reported and intelligence. I had to reread that. Did I say something wrong? And intelligence work.
I'm just trying to imagine who would have been dizzied by the events of January 6th, which was basically an unauthorized tour of the Capitol building that, I mean, if anyone would have been dizzied, it would have been the people who were nearby the shooting that happened where a young woman was shot to death by one of the security, government goon security agents in the building. I would say that would be a fairly dizzying experience. Yeah, that'll throw you off your game a little bit. But sitting at home on your couch and watching the CNN live stream or something like that, I don't know if that's a dizzying experience.
That lady, I do believe, was unarmed, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed, during the dizzying aftermath of January 6th, reporting and intelligence work revealed that some on the extreme right turned to amateur and unlicensed personal radio.
Quick, somebody panic.
Days later, on January 17th, 2021, the Federal Communications Commission put out a sternly worded statement. Certain radio services regulated by the commission may be an alternative to social media platforms. You know why they're really upset is because they can't regulate radio.
Not easily.
They can't censor, the left can't censor people on radio, on two-way radio.
That's true. That is one of the benefits.
That's the thing that bothers them.
Right. We were, just before we went to the break there, kind of touching on the differences between using a cell phone, which is a radio transmitting and receiving device. It is I don't know if you can call it two-way, but it is two-way in that it is, receiving, transmitting. It's not in the same way of you press a button and you can talk to somebody instantaneously, but there are applications that essentially allow similar functions. It's just that those use the internet, and in theory, the government could cut the internet off.
And that's the thing. The two-way radios operate independent of the internet. So
right, they're point to point. They're direct.
If the government wants to shut the internet down, right? And they don't necessarily have to do it, and they actually do this sometimes. They can do it in certain areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by shutting down,
foreign governments have done it.
Absolutely. Governments will do this, especially in, there's been numerous countries, Egypt, I believe.
Yep, that was one.
Syria, was it? Lebanon. There's basically been a bunch of countries, and including the United States, actually, even though it's highly regulated.
Cuba did it recently as well.
Yes, and Cuba, absolutely. A lot of countries, a lot of socialist, countries with socialist, a lot of countries have a bit of socialism here or there at least. Will do it, and it's unfortunate, but that's they have this idea that India even does it to stop cheating school students from cheating.
Oh, they're jamming equipment in the schools.
They shut their radio, the cellular services off, I believe, altogether.
I think the Keene State not Keene State. I think the Keene High School's got a jammer.
That's not legal. Interesting.
If it's the government running it, I bet you it is.
No, it's not. They can't even do it for prisons.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just the way the school's built then, because
it may be.
The times we've been there, for instance, we used to go there for the the school board meetings. Remember those?
Yes, definitely.
You could not get a signal.
Yeah.
You would have to use the Wi-Fi that they provided. There's no other way to get it.
Probably the result of, if I had to guess, the building materials, but I don't know. If depending on the roofing materials, it may be blocking the signal. That's not that unusual, and if there's not some sort of repeater set up in the building, probably the cellular service probably doesn't work.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not 100%, but it definitely cellular and Wi-Fi type signals can definitely be blocked as a result of building materials.
You could build a Faraday cage, basically.
Yeah, right. And don't ask me exactly what materials something has to be built from in order to have that type of effect, but it definitely is. If you're in the wrong kind of building, you'll definitely have no reception.
Faraday cage is made out of iron.
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, certain radio services regulated by the Commission may be an alternative to social media platforms for groups to communicate and coordinate future activities. It reminded radio operators that it is illegal to use radio frequencies to plan crimes, but apparently not.
It's also illegal to commit crimes, in case anyone was wondering.
Right. I was thinking the same thing off air. I was saying, except they're not telling you it's illegal to use the radio to commit a crime, which I think is kind of funny. The use of radios during the highest profile instance of right-wing extremism in decades, however, is not unique. It is part of an obscure but increasingly concerning phenomenon among the far right in recent years. Using radios, what do you I kind of want to say, what do you expect when you shut down the communications platforms that the far right is using? They're going to
find something.
Right, they're going to start using other platforms, other solutions, other technologies.
They were just supposed to stop talking.
Yeah.
We're telling them to shut up. Why won't they stop talking?
They wish they could outlaw it and put them all in prison cell, I'm sure.
The funny thing is, censorship doesn't mean that people don't have thoughts or they don't stop communicating. It just means that you force that, you're
forcing it underground.
You're forcing it underground, exactly. So I just think this is hilarious, right?
And by the way, any good left-wing psychiatrist will tell you that when you forcibly silence people, things build up and sometimes they boil over into violence.
Yep.
Yeah. Right-wing extremists primarily use the personal radio service band described by the FCC as short-range, low-power radio communications using devices that operate...
Personal radio service. I'll have to look that one up. I bet you it's like the family radio service. Maybe they renamed it.
Maybe. That operate much like walkie-talkies. Interesting. It's not walkie-talkies.
It is. I don't know why they're saying much like. That's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Well, they didn't want to say that because it sounds so innocent.
So basically, they're using these weakly powered two-way radios that you can buy at Walmart. It sounds like they do not require transmission towers or extensive equipment like more commercial FM or niche ham. So they're definitely not talking about ham radio.
Okay, personal radio service is a generic term for two-way radios that are unlicensed, essentially. So
that would be the family
Citizens Band would be one. Family radio service is another one.
Okay,
I don't know if there are any others.
I was to say I know there's like at least one. But I wasn't really thinking about those others, but you're right. I guess there are a couple.
So there's more coming up here to the story, right? On the way.
Yeah, definitely.
You can share your thoughts as well at 603-283-6160. And they clearly want more of a crackdown. They want more regulations. And there have been news reports that a lot of these unlicensed radios are going to be stopped by the FCC, but they're still available on places like Amazon. So you might want to get one while you still can.
Free Talk Live.
There's only one place you could have sex without everybody else knowing about it. That's in the bathroom. Unless you want to go back into the crew quarters, which might give you bonus points. The Mile High Club awards you, I suppose, based on the amount of times that you've entered into the club. Not only do you want to be in the club, you want to be the top dog.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be a premier member.
So I would think there'd have to be points for location on the plane, who you encountered with. Were you there with your girlfriend? Did you take her into the bathroom? Did you manage to get a stewardess into the bathroom with you? Did you manage to get the girl that you just happened to be sitting next to on the plane? I mean, so all of these things could be worth.
Oh, man. To be a part of the Mile High Club, what's the criteria?
You have to
copulate in the air.
Yeah.
What defines copulation? Who has to have an orgasm? Does there have to be an orgasm?
Or do you just have to stick it in and pull it out?
Is it just penetration? Bam, bam. We're out of here. Mile High Club, give me my card.
Yeah.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden in Saudi Arabia says he has told Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that the U.S. holds him responsible for the murder and dismemberment of Saudi-American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The president caused controversy by greeting the Crown Prince with a fist bump when he arrived in Jeddah earlier today. But in remarks after their meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the World Body body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here, bring up whatever is on your mind. Ian, Nobody, and Chris in the studio tonight. Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You heard us talking about cryptocurrency earlier, and it's a favorite topic of ours because it's such an important one. Crypto and like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash allows the individual to empower themselves and take their value out of the government money system, which is constantly being inflated to death. We haven't even touched on the new government official inflation numbers, now over 9%. 9.1% is the latest CPI number. And again, that's the government's number. So you know the actual inflation is higher than that. You can guarantee that 9.1% is the bare minimum. So we can cover that deeper if you guys want to comment. You're welcome to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. But get on over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and start learning some of the basics about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. There's no better time than now, if you haven't yet done that, to start learning. And again, just click Get Started at the top of the page at Bitcoin.com. You can also acquire your first Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash there. There's a bunch of different features that they have over at Bitcoin.com, including their news site with the latest news headlines every single day, available to you over at news.bitcoin.com. Let's continue here with your calls and thoughts. Sarah is on the line, and then we'll talk more about two-way radio for activist communications. Sarah in New Mexico. Go ahead.
Yes. Did you know that this year, nationwide, we had the highest pedestrian fatalities ever? So altogether,
wow.
6,500.
What do you think's happening? Are people just not paying attention as they cross the street, or what?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming they got rid of all the speeding cameras and red light cameras for the last 10 years.
Well, those don't stop people from getting hit by cars.
Well, they're running red lights and speeding, but maybe there's not enough people like me. There's people that should get fed up.
People who don't drive.
Losing their loved ones and do something about it, But
well, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to prohibit people from driving?
The thing is that, we're trying to do self-driving cars, autos.
So it's going to be better if computers are in charge?
Well, I would like to do everything. If we could get red light cameras.
Here's a tip. Look both ways before you cross the street. I'm sorry.
It's a good plan.
I just don't understand. I get it if somebody rolls their car up on the curb and you weren't expecting that. I'm sure that happens from time to time. But I would really be interested in seeing the breakdown of what percentage of these people that are dying when they're pedestrians, how many of them are like on the sidewalk versus trying to cross through traffic and just get plowed into.
Yeah, and then some of these bridges are really terrible.
You don't know the answer, of course. You're just upset about it.
Well, the breakdown is, if you're a driver like you're going to blame the pedestrian. They just jumped out in front of my car. They're always jaywalking. But if you're a pedestrian, they're always running the red lights and trying to kill me.
Well, I'll tell you what. I saw somebody just the other day here in Keene, New Hampshire, where pedestrians have extra protections because, well, in theory, they're still going to get hit, but they believe they have extra protections because it's illegal to not yield to pedestrians in crosswalks. So these people, they just walk right out there. They don't even look over. They presume you're going to be paying attention, and in my case, I am paying attention, but there are other people who probably aren't paying so much attention. So these pedestrians, they think the law is going to protect them. So they just walk out into the crosswalk without even glancing. to see if somebody is coming up on them. I mean, it's crazy, and I've seen it happen more than once.
But the first number one state was Daytona, Florida. Is it Daytona? Is in Florida?
That's a
So
city.
that was the most city with the most pedestrian killed. And the second one that came is Albuquerque.
Right.
But New Mexico is number one per capita.
Well, you could just stay home, I guess, and order all your food.
Sarah, there are places where cars are prohibited from the streets for the most part.
Like what? Like a downtown area or something?
Whole cities actually.
Really?
Yeah, coming up. They're basically
coming soon.
I believe. Yeah, I believe Spain is one of the.
Well, it's a whole country, but some cities. In Spain.
not the whole country of Spain, but yeah, I'm
Madrid or whatever.
Yeah, it's like one of their bigger cities. I forget which one it is.
So
now,
they're going to make it so you have to get on a bus.
Bikes. They're trying to force bikes and buses and things of that
nature. What if you're crippled?
I don't know.
Carts.
That's
it's low speed. They don't let you go more than 15 miles per hour. How fast can you go on those little go-go carts?
Probably not too fast. Sarah, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. The number here is 603-283-6160. Maybe that statistics are out there. I would be curious to know of all these people who are getting hit by cars. What are the circumstances that are leading to that? How many of it is like drunk people just stumbling out in front of traffic and getting hit?
Even one life is one life too many. Again, I say we need to ban all motor vehicles.
Well, obviously you're being facetious because the world would not work without cars.
Yeah. How many additional people would starve to death in the world if there weren't cars?
Yeah, well, talk to the people in Shanghai who were not starving to death because they were jumping from the rooftops and jumping from their apartment balconies to their death because they were sick and tired of being kept inside all the time because they could not get in their car or even on their bike and go down the street and, go to the grocery store. It's an insane situation. People will go nuts if they don't have the freedom to take themselves somewhere where they want to go. And cars give you that relative freedom. Yes, there are cops around. Yes, there are cameras around. But having the ability to get behind the wheel and go somewhere far away relatively quickly is a benefit that a lot of people appreciate, and they're not going to just let that go.
Yeah, it's sort of I think you could argue it's a form of torture.
To keep someone out of that,
to keep somebody caged effectively, whether it's restrict them from leaving their house or restrict them from leaving a cell,
right, or their neighborhood for that matter.
Yeah, or their neighborhood. And it's something that I think sometimes it's hard to understand, especially if you've never gone through it. But even if you have gone through it, I think some people they don't understand that how something impacts you isn't necessarily going to impact everybody else the same way. So yeah.
Let's talk about two-way radios. So we were, Chris, you were telling us about the left-wingers, and they're incensed over the fact that some people at the January 6th quote-unquote insurrection were using two ways to communicate.
Yeah, so basically the story from Slate is freaking out about two-way radios, of all things. Why radio? The format seems rather outdated and clunky relative to easily accessible phones and apps. But for the extreme right, increasing perception of hostility. I mean, I think if you block them,
I think it might
from
be
all
the increasing hostility that's causing the increasing perception of hostility.
Yes.
Just a guess.
If you block them from all platforms, I mean, I don't know. It on more conventional communication platforms has driven the switch to personal radio. If you've been deplatformed by Twitter or Facebook, so literally what we were saying before, or if you know that you are likely to be, radio offers a new venue for communication.
It's not new, guys. It's been around for like 100 years.
Yeah, the funny thing is too,
or longer,
is just because you're blocked from Facebook doesn't, or YouTube, or any of these mainstream platforms, doesn't mean that you can't communicate. There are certainly other more decentralized platforms. There are even centralized platforms you can still communicate on.
Those
they may be smaller platforms,
by the way. I mean, as far as if you're in a place with people, you don't want to be tweeting or posting to Facebook to try to get a message to somebody. You want to be able to reach that person in a much more instantaneous fashion. You don't want somebody to have to check their social media and then click on a notifications and then maybe they'll see your... You want to reach those people. And the fact is, radio is better for that in a lot of ways. It's got its downsides, there's no doubt about it. And it can be a little clunky. It does have range issues, for instance. But there's no more immediate way to actually talk to someone.
I'm going to hear my radio, and I'm not going to hear my phone in a lot of cases.
There's more on the way here. The number is 603-283-6160, and this is Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. I'm looking online right now at the Baofeng two-way radios that activists love to use up here in New Hampshire and have been using for many years. Most of them without asking government permission to do so. And they are still cheap, cheap, cheap. Inflation has not affected these things one bit. You can get a Baofeng two-way for like $22 on Amazon, and it's a programmable radio that can run on ham radio bands and other radio bands, and it's a pretty amazing piece of technology for what you pay for it. I mean, basically these things, if it were 30 years ago and you wanted to get into ham radio, you'd probably have to pay $300 to $500 to get a radio with the feature set that you can now pay $25 for and have delivered to you. I mean, it's amazing technology. It's cheap. I mean, it's probably not the best build quality or anything like that.
Oh, no.
But it's so cheap that it'll last you for a while, and if you drop it and it shatters or whatever, it's another $22 to replace the thing.
Or you'll lose them. That is one of the benefits of the cheap radios is if you lose them,
it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, the world isn't coming down.
You could drop it in the toilet, and it's
absolutely
not going to be a disaster.
If you use a radio every day, you absolutely will lose one.
Or break it.
Or break it. Probably at least once every 6 months.
Yep.
If not more frequently. Especially when you first start using them, because you're not as aware, I think, of what you're doing with it, and you don't know where to place it. Maybe like if you get in your car, it might fall out of your pocket or something. But if you get into a habit of putting it into some place where you won't lose it, then you won't lose it.
So we've been using the activist community here in New Hampshire has been using these two-way radios for many years, and they've been very successful. And you can use them on legal frequencies. So it's not like these are illegal radios. It's legal to have the actual radio. It's just the question is, how do you use the radio?
It's the broadcasting, I believe, that's the legal issue with as far as FCC is concerned.
On certain channels, yeah.
I think there may be a ruling where the radios themselves you can't use, but I don't know if that's
you can use them
true
on certain frequencies
for listening
at certain power levels.
Yeah,
they would be legal. So
no. I think the FCC has said, again, what is legal and what the regulators say isn't always necessarily the case, right? So the law can say one thing and a regulator can say something else. But I think the regulator, the FCC, has come out saying that even if you are a licensed ham operator, you can't use them. Now
that's insane.
Yeah. I don't know if any of that's changed, because I think they now
that makes no sense whatsoever.
Licensed basically Baofeng radios, and there's actually a specific model you can get. So I'm not sure.
Oh, you mean it like an FCC numbered kind of thing? Where it's
one
approved?
Where it's actually certified. So in theory, maybe that variant of the Baofeng is legal for a ham radio operator.
Yeah, that's the thing with this technology is it seems like it's sort of this. I don't know if it's open source or it's just been reverse engineered. There seem to be multiple Chinese manufacturers of the same quote-unquote Baofeng radio. It's not real clear like where they even come from.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. So this is China here. So the manufacturing is often done, like, it doesn't really matter what it is, whether it's a
a thing or two because you actually order parts from China for your business.
Yeah,
Think Penguin.
I do this. So it's called contract manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody uses effectively like the same set of companies. Now there might be different pieces from different companies, but everybody's using the same set of companies, big companies that manufacture basically everything.
Right.
If you get a washer and dryer, it's likely that the core component is the same or maybe a microwave would be a better example. But anyway, the point is that core component inside is the same with every single unit. Now, there might be a few small differences as far as like,
you
the
mean
panel
it's compared to the feature that's on the front? You mean like the circuit boards are the same inside versus what the thing looks like on the outside?
The thing that actually radiates the food, I think, is what I'm referencing as an example.
The actual microwave.
Yeah, so that core component, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other things like, whether or not it has a dial versus a
pad.
A pad, that might be different, right? Depending on, the company and the model. But effectively, that core component is still being manufactured by the same company. And that core component might be assembled by yet another company with different faces and things like that, but that core unit is the same. Now there's other other times, if you get enough, some items where if you get enough like different components together, then it becomes to sort of, you kind of end up with a more unique product. But even in those cases, usually, like for example, with like a laptop, you might only have 2 or 3 different choices for like, say, Wi-Fi cards or an LCD, for a screen. There's only like a factory or a couple of factories that manufacture LCD screens. So even though it says Sony or it says Dell or it says, there's hundreds of companies that you might think,
label it.
Yeah, that you might think you're getting a screen from, but really it's really only one of a handful of factories. So, and that factory might be producing different quality screens. Okay. So maybe, maybe Sony only ever uses the better quality screens, right? Whereas if you go with a no name, it might not be, but it's the same company. It's the same factory that's effectively manufacturing it.
I always knew
under
that
contract.
I always knew that happened with Radio Shack products. I knew they were always relabeling other companies' manufactured products as Radio Shack, but that's interesting that it's happening at the more like bigger brands level.
AMD, another great example. AMD doesn't have any manufacturing capability.
No kidding.
It's completely outsourced. They sold off their fabs, and everything is everything. Their processors are all outsourced. Under contract. They're manufactured under contract by a fab. And Intel, I believe, still does have some manufacturing capacity, but I don't know if they're 100% manufacturing in-house or if they've outsourced some of it. So that's the other thing that happens often is some companies, even when they do have manufacturing capacity, will outsource some of it or have a third party manufacturer under contract for them to a certain spec their product. So even if they're manufacturing some of it, sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's even more complicated because they'll be sort of, you might have the same face to something. Apple, a great example is, they had a iPhone, I don't know, I forget what it was. I'm just gonna make up a number. iPhone 11, right?
Okay.
They had an iPhone 11, and it actually had 2 different processors, and depending on which company was manufacturing it.
Wow.
And so you might actually have a different performance depending on which version you got, what variant.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like if you looked at reviews and there were some were good, some were good and some were not.
Wow.
Well, that might be why. So
all right.
Yeah. If it's and the spec, just because something matches a certain set of spec doesn't necessarily mean it is the same. So you can get potentially different performance out of different things, or certain tasks might be faster or slower on one than the other. So,
all right, what else do we need about the story?
Yeah. So, as social media began to crack down on extremist content and baseless conspiracy theories, a universe of alt tech platforms.
Also, the base conspiracy theories, for example, the lab leak theory, which is now widely accepted.
The Wuhan one?
Yeah, that was labeled a baseless conspiracy theory and silenced. The Hunter Biden laptop
that was also
absolutely
baseless, right?
true, and that was also labeled a baseless conspiracy theory.
I'm sure they're saying the same
apparently
thing.
Their statement that all these things are baseless is kind of baseless.
Let's see. A universe of alt tech platforms emerged. Yeah, that's kind of funny because a lot of these platforms, they existed, prior to.
Are they talking about like Gab and Mastodon and things like that?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, Mastodon.
That's
exists.
funny. I'd not heard the term alt tech.
Yes, all this alt tech existed prior to the right wing,
the crackdowns.
Getting kicked off or censored or shadow banned or whatever off these platforms. It just became better known.
Yeah, of course.
Because of if half the population isn't allowed on the internet or isn't allowed on the mainstream platform, so to speak. And I'm putting that in quotes these days because they're a heck of a lot less mainstream if half the internet isn't allowed on it. Then these alternative solutions are going to end up getting more popular, and that's
you push
exactly
them
what
down,
happened.
and they're going to find somewhere else to pop out.
Yeah. So they're saying these alt tech platforms emerged to fill the vacuum. Historically, right-wing extremist groups have adopted personal radios.
What do left-wing extremist groups do? Although I don't know that they accept the concept of left-wing extremists.
Yeah, kind of like Slate, you mean? All right. For similar reasons, in the face of modern tech monitoring. And shouldn't that be disturbing? Like that, I think should be disturbing. All I think is 1984, right? If you haven't read that book, you should read that book.
I finally did earlier this year. Finally got to read it.
Yeah, it's disturbing. Klansmen would utilize CB radios to engage in mobile, discreet, tactical communications and avoid
discreet.
It's not discreet. It's literally
It's
public. Right. And avoid the risks of more easily monitored technologies like telephones.
This is like them claiming that Bitcoin is anonymous. It's public. It's viewable by anyone in the same way these technologies. Now, there are such things as encrypted radios.
That's not what they're using.
They're very, very expensive from what I understand. I've never even really taken a serious look at them. There's more coming up here in moments. You can join us, and we'll find out what their solution is. They've got to have what they want to happen coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden in Saudi Arabia says he has told Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that the U.S. holds him responsible for the murder and dismemberment of Saudi-American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The president caused controversy by greeting the Crown Prince with a fist bump when he arrived in Jeddah earlier today, but in remarks after their meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And it was I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the world body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC, alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We're going to round the week off with an eyewitness account of the protests that have been building in Sri Lanka for the last 3 months, but finally this week swept the government and the corruption of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa from power. If you've seen the images from Colombo, you'll know this was an exercise in raw people power, a population rising up to say enough. Dr. Farah Mailar is a lecturer in conflict studies at Exeter University, a British Sri Lankan academic and human rights activist.
The protests have been incredibly inspirational. I was there a month ago. I was part of it, as have been so many of my friends. This is not a protest where, you have unruly mobs attacking places. This has been a protest where people have been absolutely fed up with a government that has driven the country down and driven the country dry of foreign currency, caused an economic crisis, put people on the verge of starvation. Now, of course, as with every political movement, you have elements that might be, you could call them extreme, you could call them perhaps bordering violence, but largely the protest movement has been amazing. It has been peaceful and they have been successful.
But now the hard work starts, restoring some semblance of confidence in government and rebuilding a Sri Lankan economy that is on its knees. It is far from clear that the caretaker Prime Minister, now also acting president, has the confidence of the people either. The main news again, President Biden in Saudi Arabia has generated huge controversy by greeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman with a fist bump. For the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK next week, and more protests are expected in Akron, Ohio, after police disclosed 25-year-old Jayland Walker, gunned down by them last month, was shot 46 times. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A new medical study on the effects of marijuana use confirms that everyone knows you're high and that you'll never stop feeling like this.
Everyone can smell the marijuana on your breath and on your clothes. Everyone is laughing at you.
Additionally, the in-depth report reveals that despite trying to act cool, you're definitely laughing too much and everyone is messing with you.
Your parents know you're high, your friends know you're high, strangers on the street know you're high. If you're young and you smoke marijuana, you will probably never be able to find a job. And if you're an adult, you will most likely be fired. If you hear a noise, that's probably the police, and you're probably going to jail.
While previous studies suggested that it's all good and that we're all made of the same stuff that makes stars, new research indicates that your brain got broken and you shouldn't have done this. Doctors say the study raises important questions such as, what if that wasn't just marijuana and how are you going to get home?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We've been talking about two-way radios and activists using them. There's a story you've been sharing with us, Chris. You said we're near the end of it, but do they actually get to the what they want to see happen? They've been identifying what they consider to be a problem, which is quote-unquote right-wingers who are using two-way radios because they can't get on big tech platforms easily. They've been banned from various different internet platforms, so they're going back to the old form. The thing that came before the internet, CB radio and other direct two-way radio services that you can, go down to your local Walmart or Amazon and grab cheapy handheld radios and just start talking to your friends. So that's what they're targeting here in this story from Slate. It's Ian, Nobody, and Chris in the studio here tonight. But they must have something they want to see happen. Does the story actually get to that?
Well, that's a good question. So they do actually get into how they're effectively working with ham radio clubs and things of that nature.
Who is? The right-wingers or the left-wingers?
The left, I guess. So we can get a little bit into it. I can read a little bit more.
I do want to hear about that, yeah.
Unlike with personal radio service bands, there is a system to monitor ham radio platforms run largely by volunteers. Ham radio broadly describes the non-commercial, often individual use of radio bands for communicative, personal, and hobbyist purposes. Unlike the personal radio service, ham radio requires licensing by FCC, including a technical exam and extensive study of radio equipment. Broadcasts can also reach across hundreds of miles. The FCC is able to gather info on amateur broadcasts to violate the law through its friends in the ham radio community.
Snitches.
Yeah, snitches.
Snitches get stitches.
Yep. Ham radio operators.
Well, in the ham radio community, they are very, very big. Like, I don't know what the split is. I'm not a ham person. I've never been interested in asking for permission to be, a radio user. But I am aware of these people. They essentially are the obedient class. They're the people who, well, I got my license. You should have your license. And if you don't have a license, we're going to find you. And we're going to cut your antenna cables. That's literally something you will hear stories about. If these people, they're monitoring their ham bands, and they hear somebody key up without identifying their little ham code, their ham call sign, then they will triangulate their position. They won't wait for the FCC because they know it'll take forever for the FCC to do anything about any kind of complaints.
Well, FCC won't do anything about it anyway.
So they get in their cars or their trucks or whatever, and they go out and they do it themselves, and they will find the offending party's location, presuming they're not mobile and hard to find. If they've got a base station or something like that, they literally will destroy their private property.
Yeah,
it's insane.
There are hunts that basically go around in these communities to track down and track down individuals who are violating the licensing. Ham radio operators like Dan of the Central Michigan Amateur Radio Club and their local communities have also taken to pushing away extremist activity when they see it. Dan describes a system of self-policing in the ham community, particularly through the ham radio auxiliaries who listen in on broadcasts regularly and report potentially illegal or harmful content. I mean, this sounds so like Soviet, Stalinist Soviet Union, where every third person was reporting, to government. I mean, like, seriously, like, you have to have a serious obsession, some sort of mental illness to be doing this unpaid.
They're just losers. I mean, everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's a hobby you could probably get paid for if you go into some sort of law enforcement. Not that I'm advocating for that or anything. Just the idea that like you would do it as a hobby just sounds crazy to me.
It's probably it feels empowering to them, right? Like a
lot of them are probably wannabe cops who got turned down for psychological reasons or what have you.
Right, and they feel like they've done something if they can go and cut somebody's cable.
I just want to point out, this is not every ham radio operator.
No, but I think it's a large percentage
There
of
is
them.
Definitely a type, definitely, yeah. I know ham radio operators, and I don't know many that would do this, but I definitely know they're out there. Or harmful content directly to federal authorities. These auxiliaries note and report the frequency and location of questionable content for FCC tracking. I'm pretty sure the FCC is not tracking the little bit of radio, usage that you're violating. They probably are tracking things like pirate radio, that kind of thing.
Well, because it's easy to find. I mean, if you are running a 24-hour-a-day broadcast, that's sitting in one place. It's not rolling around. Most pirate radio operators aren't like Happy Harry Hardon in the old movie from Pump Up the Volume from the 1980s, where he actually had a mobile unit and he was driving around as he was broadcasting. That's not very realistic. They probably have
easier to accomplish in an 80s movie than in reality.
Yeah, it was a great movie, but not very realistic.
It was pretty funny actually in the movie.
Yeah, so you got to have a physical base station that does not move around in order for your signal to be easily findable or whatever, and so it's easy for them to try to triangulate those people.
Right.
Whereas if you're just an individual with a handheld radio, you could be here, you could be there.
Here's the thing: you probably won't have the time to triangulate a 2-second broadcast the way radios are typically used. Ham radios or Bofang radios or whatever, this type of radio or something like this. If you're doing it enough or long enough, maybe
if you're on for hours every week or whatever, and you're consistently in the same place, they might be able to find you.
So it's actually interesting because there was a not like the hunts that go on with a lot of these ham clubs, but there was actually a hunt at PorkFest for a radio just to, to pick up on those skills, right?
Oh, that's cool.
You don't necessarily need just the adversary to have those skills. Those are also good things for everybody to have. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know if they ever found the so the way those work is basically there is like this antenna and it's placed somewhere and it's got a signal that broadcasts, I believe, and then you have to triangulate and try and find that thing.
Cool.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. They would be really stupid to use the frequencies that are allocated for ham radio. Yeah,
yes, they would.
Probably true. Although I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Would it be stupid?
Yes, it is, because those people are there and they're going to snitch on you.
But
if you can avoid being detected,
right? Like, what are they really going to get out of snitching on you anyway?
Satisfaction. If you avoid the detection in the first place, then you're that many steps ahead of the game.
I don't know. I feel like you're just giving in to them, and I don't know. Anyway, I get
why would you go play in their playground if you could just go on another empty playground?
There's a good argument to that. I just don't know. Like, this is one of these things that's
don't pee in their pool, and they'll leave you mostly alone if they don't know you exist.
Right. This is true. There's too many hams out there that monitor them and report them to the FCC. Yeah, the FCC is a joke. Dan said the FCC itself.
Wait, he said it's a joke?
No, I'm saying it's a joke.
Oh, you're saying it's a joke.
Yeah. The FCC itself declined to comment on its regulatory actions and the circumstances that led it to issue warnings on the use of radio for criminal activities. Yeah. Let me back up a second. So people think the FCC, like, they do stuff. Like, they're actually not that big in the scheme of things as far as, like, and regulatory entities go.
They've actually had their enforcement offices cut over the years.
Yeah.
There's not as many of them.
And they don't even do, like, I don't know if you know electronics, like, have the FCC certification on them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not done by the FCC. So, like, people have this idea that, like, oh, the FCC must be this huge government, and it is to some degree, but it's more of a smaller, relatively speaking, compared to other federal 3-letter federal agencies, right? So
the FCC approval is done by a third party. They hire somebody.
Yeah, there's these. It's
certifiers.
They're these. I'm trying to think how you describe them exactly. But there's basically these all over the world. They have these people, companies that you can send your device to for certification, and then they run all the tests that they're supposed to run, and then
they do certification for, like, FCC and the Europe one and, like, different certifications.
Yeah, they do. And then those get filed. I think they do get filed with the FCC, but it's not the FCC, like, really doing the certification. So
of course not. Bureaucrats. It would take forever, right? There's more coming up here in moments. You can join us. 603-283-6160. Whether you want to weigh in on two-way radio as a way to get around the big tech control grid. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones open. You can join us here. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can also follow the show on our Odyssey channel. Odyssey is probably the best platform out there because at its core, it is based on LBRY, which is an open source system for sharing media online and decentralized, uncensorable. Odyssey itself is technically censorable because it is a platform, but it's based on the LBRY protocol at some level, although they have brought in some central servers and things like that. It's an interesting thing they're doing over there, and you can check them out. Go to video.freetalklive.com. You'll find our video services there. And you can also get them on LBRY, of course, which is, like I said, the underlying platform, the underlying protocol beneath that. And you can check out LBRY at lbry.com. It's something we've been supporting for many years here on Free Talk Live because we like these alternatives. We like alternatives like two-way radios, LBRY, the Matrix chat system, Mastodon as another more decentralized, federated option for transacting information online. We've been putting our not just verbal support, but our also money behind these things and launching our own servers and things like that. And I want to invite our listeners to check out our social media platform. If you're sick and tired of these centralized big tech corporate platforms, which have total control over what you're able to say, you cross a line, you get banned on these things, you can go and have way more freedom to express yourself if you go to social.freetalklive.com. You do have to, when you sign up, it's going to ask you why you want to join. Just put something in there about you listen to the show, or something that references the fact that you're a listener to Free Talk Live, and that'll get you in. Because we're trying to keep the spammers out. That's the one problem with Mastodon, is it's not very good at keeping out the robots. But apparently, neither is Twitter, for that matter. So that's Elon Musk's big reason for dropping out of the Twitter deal, is Twitter apparently was not so honest about how many bots are actually using their platform. So we're trying to keep those bots off. That's why we have the question, the survey, basically. It's just a one-question thing when you sign up. It's social.freetalklive.com. Tonight in the studio, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
Chris, I know you got a little bit more here on the two-way communications outrage. Apparently, some people on the left are mad about the fact that some people on the right apparently are using two-way radios to talk to one another because, well, there's no in-between. There's no middleman there that they can put pressure on and force them to censor your communications. And that pisses them off.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Not only can't you speak publicly to many people, but they don't even want you to be able to, people on the right to be able to speak to each other.
The funny thing is the thing that attracted me to the left, because I come from the left, is the Students for Democratic Society, for example, which was they kind of kicked off the 60s in Berkeley. And what were they? They were a free speech movement. That's what they started out as. So they've come full circle. So the leftists have become exactly what they hated.
Wow. How many times has that happened over history, though? Right? There's so many people.
Well, what was it that I can't remember who wrote it, but it was Nietzsche. He wrote, "Always beware when you look into the abyss, for the abyss looks also into you."
Let's go to your phone calls and thoughts here. We have Major Payne on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Hey, guys. Yeah, my old man always used to say, from short sleeves to short sleeves in 3 generations.
I don't get it.
You come back.
That's an economic thing, that one generation gets rich, the other generation lives off the money, and the third generation loses it.
Somebody's got to go back to work. Yep.
Gotcha.
But, you guys are talking about the pirate radios.
Yeah.
Back in the early 70s, along the Texas-Mexican border, there was a couple of guys that had a van with a rig set up. And I think they'd had like a boat winch or something to help them raise the antenna, but they'd pull up and broadcast for 2-3 hours. And some rock band actually wrote a song about it. It was called the Mexican Radio.
Really?
I only remember
Mexican Radio. That was the Doors.
No, that wasn't the Doors.
I'm on the Mexican.
That was the Doors? No.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
That was like a one-hit wonder. It was on MTV back in the day. I'll find it for you.
I heard it on the Mexican. Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually
Wall
thinking
of
something different.
Wall of Voodoo.
No kidding.
Yep.
That's like Mountain. One-hit wonder.
Yeah, one-hit wonder. Yeah, back in 1982, released on their album Call of the West and released as a single in 1983, got regular airplay on MTV, which is where I remember watching it, back when MTV used to actually play music videos. It was one of those totally weird videos. It probably would have been on Dr. Demento or something like that.
I wish I were in Tijuana eating barbecued iguana.
But is that? Are you saying that song's actually regarding the pirate broadcaster you're talking about?
Yes, yeah, that's what they were writing about.
Oh, that's cool.
Tell me what the name of that band was again. I didn't get it.
Wall of Voodoo.
Wall of Voodoo.
That's it.
Never even heard of
it. Yeah. There you go. So you said they only broadcast for like 2 or 3 hours at a time from this van?
I wasn't down in Tejas when I was 12 years old, so I can't speak gospel about it, but Hell, listen to the song. They might tell you more. I don't know.
Man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
They were probably selling doobies the rest of the time, because you got to sell a lot of doobies when you're living in a van down by the river.
The number here is 603-283-6160. Now, he's talking about a time when there was no internet, right? Where the CB radio was the old way of mass communications.
Internet before the internet.
The chat room before the chat room was what CB radio was. And having a pirate radio station like that definitely would have generated way more interest than it would today. If somebody went to and put a broadcast rig in a van and then drove somewhere and broadcast for 2 or 3 hours, almost no one would be able to come across that, because, I mean, sure, a few people would probably be scanning the band and they'd hear it, but radio isn't what it used to be as far as a communications medium. I mean, it still has sort of this incumbency. There's still a large number of people out there in the United States that do listen to radio.
I want to say, don't underestimate the number of radios in cars.
There's a lot of them. But a lot of people are using Bluetooth, or they're using some other kind of system in their cars. And usually once people, even those that do use the radio, they have their favorite channels. They're just switching between them. They're probably not scanning to find new channels.
Probably listen to whatever comes in the clearest these days.
Yeah, so it's not going to have the same pizzazz to it that it would have. It made for a great movie in the form of Christian Slater in the 1980s in Pump Up the Volume, where he also did this sort of mobile broadcast and created this movement around his pirate radio station. And I just don't know if you can pull something like that off these days.
Well, you can if enough people get kicked off the internet.
Well, yeah, that much is true. So we got more here. We got Jack in Washington State. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Jack in Washington, going once. Jack in Washington going twice. All right, we got your calls and thoughts are certainly welcome about whatever's on your mind. There's a little bit more, I think, to your story, Chris, that you wanted to share tonight. We're going to get into that coming up here in moments. It's from Slate. They're going off because some people on the right wing are not asking for permission to communicate with one another. And that's the world these people that are writing the story want to live in. They want there to be a moderator.
Better get your government permission slip before you start talking.
Of all communications. And they're mad that somebody could just go spend $20 on a two-way radio and be able to talk with whoever else is willing to spend $20 on one. There's more coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden in Saudi Arabia says he has told Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that the U.S. holds him responsible for the murder and dismemberment of Saudi-American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The president caused controversy by greeting the Crown Prince with a fist bump when he arrived in Jeddah earlier today, but in remarks after their meeting, he insisted he had addressed the issue directly.
With respect to the murder of Khashoggi, I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am? I'll always stand up for our values.
The president said the Crown Prince, who earlier smirked when a reporter shouted a question about the killing, denied culpability for it. The president responded that he didn't believe him. Jamal Khashoggi's fiancée said today the blood of anyone else killed on the Crown Prince's orders will now be on Joe Biden's hands. In other news today, for the first time ever, a red extreme heat warning has been issued for parts of the UK and a weather-related national emergency has been declared. Forecasters are urging people next week significantly to alter their normal routines, saying temperatures will pose a threat to lives. FSN's UK correspondent John Beaver with more.
The highest ever recorded temperature of 38.7 degrees Celsius in England could be exceeded on Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office is warning of a widespread impact on people and infrastructure. In the hottest areas, there are expected to be health risks for the entire population. There are also warnings of widespread disruption as the heat could impact travel infrastructure and essential services like power and water.
A British aid worker accused by the Russians of being a mercenary has died in detention after he was captured by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Paul Yuri was 45. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says Moscow bears full responsibility for his death. He was an insulin-dependent diabetic, but it's not yet clear precisely how he died. The United Nations says it's working to address sexism within the world body after a BBC report highlighted apparent sexual harassment and misogyny. From FSN's bureau at UN headquarters in New York, Will Denzelo reports.
The UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN is working to tackle a male-dominated culture. He added that efforts are ongoing to try and improve the system. Over a dozen former and current UN staff spoke to the BBC alleging there's a climate of fear at the UN.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. I think old Major Payne's pretty baked or something like that, because the Mexican radio song lyrics, they don't seem to have anything at all to do with being a pirate radio broadcaster. You got lyrics here that seem to be more about getting high and other weird stuff. Smoke killer herb till my lungs collapse. Lost $2,000 last night shooting craps. That's a little excerpt there. And there's basically a reference to cannabis in every single verse of the song. So I think it's more of a get high, strange kind of tune than more of a Dr. Demento kind of thing than it is anything about actual broadcast radio. But still, great song. I remember it from back in the day. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
And you can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. Please enjoy the features we have for you there, including our chat server. We're talking about alternatives for communication. Again, the Matrix chat system is one of those. I think I saw a headline, Chris, I don't know if it came across your desk, something like 60 million users of Matrix. They're celebrating it or something like that. I don't know if you heard about that, but
I'm not sure if I have seen this.
Yeah, this is recent. I just saw it probably within the last 24 hours. I don't know how they count that number, given that it's a federated system and anybody who wants to can put their own server online, and I don't think those stats are public. But
well, you probably can't count them exhaustively. If somebody doesn't want you to know, then you won't know, but maybe that just means 60 million that they know of.
Yeah, maybe that's what they've registered on their own central server over time, but that seems way too high. Maybe it was...
yeah, it's a good question. Well, I mean, so the servers, you have to remember, are federated, so they communicate with one another.
They
so
do, but do they share user lists with one another directly? Maybe they do. I know you can look up somebody, right?
It might be stats rather than lists.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what information is and is not available.
Well, okay, here's the story. I found the story here for you. This is at msn.com. by the Register's Richard Speed, published 18 hours ago. The decentralized Matrix network has crashed through the 60 million user mark, with user growth rate exceeding 70% in 2021, according to the company behind the messaging service.
Pat yourself on the back, Ian.
Well, I guess we helped a little bit. It's impressive stuff, although definitive figures are tricky to ascertain thanks to the decentralized nature of the platform. Element boss and Matrix co-founder Matthew Hodgson reckons the 60 million figure might actually be an underestimate, and told the Register via email, quote, "We have limited stats on the overall Matrix ecosystem as servers and clients do not report usage stats by default to matrix.org, particularly government deployments. As such, the 60 million addressable user figure is an underestimate, and it doesn't include government deployments, which we estimate to be currently around 500,000 active users." Ew, government's using Matrix too?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You need decentralized solutions. Like if the internet goes down, you need solutions that are going to work on networks that are not, centralized, that can be easily taken out.
Yeah, run their own servers to do their evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's kind of funny because every effective group, whether you're a government or not, sort of needs these technologies in order to defend themselves from yet other groups. So whether it's the libertarians against Democrats or libertarians against government or Democrats against the government, depending on who's in power, everybody needs them.
The figure is therefore the total number of addressable users that are visible to the matrix.org home server, but it doesn't include servers or users that are not viewable on the public network or those that don't report usage stats. So I guess.
So in other words, if we set up 2 servers or 5 or a dozen servers for libertarians, and we don't ever federate with the home server, the main Matrix server out there, then our stats will never end up being recorded in their numbers.
Yeah, I don't. I think aren't you federated by default though with Matrix?
I imagine so,
because I know we can find people that are on matrix.org.
Yeah,
through our server.
We definitely are federated with the Matrix home server for sure, 100%.
But they could disfederate from us anytime they want to, right? Like if they found they were, we don't like you libertarians.
In fact, I think there's a room that has banned people from the LRN FM server from accessing that room. So.
There are a few there's a few rooms on our server that other people cannot join. I don't know if they can't see them, but they can't join them. Maybe they can't see them.
I think that's true in reverse. So if you're on a matrix.org server, and depending on the settings for that room, you may not be able to join from other servers, or you may not be able to join possibly from certain servers.
And one of the cool things about Matrix is, and by the way, you can go to our Matrix server at chat.freetalklive.com. That gives you the step-by-step instructions on how to join. But the cool thing about the Matrix server is you don't have to ask permission to create a room. So if you've got an idea for, like, you look at the list of rooms and you think, oh, nobody's got a room about blank, and you want to create a room about blank, then you can go ahead and do that there, and you get to decide. Do you want the room to be public? Do you want it to be private? Do you want it to be federated? Do you want it not to be federated? Do you want it encrypted? Do you want it not encrypted? You get to be the admin, and you get to decide how the things run, which is pretty cool, because all the centralized things like Slack and Discord, they don't allow users to do anything except join the existing rooms. So I got to say I'm a big fan of what they're doing over there. So congratulations to them for actually getting to 60 million global users at least. So those are the ones they can count. So maybe there's another 40 million out there. Who knows how many more millions there are on servers that aren't connected to them. Let's go back to your calls and thoughts here. Jack is on the line now. We've got him back in Washington. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm pretty sure the Mexican radio song was actually written by an artist that knew me really well in my youth. I was a reflection of the song. Anyway, I'm in Washington. Okay. But are you guys familiar with you talked about like the Hunter laptop and with Ray Epps and the January 6th? The guy that looked like a cop that was...
Oh, yeah, the guy who was on video saying, we have to take the Capitol tomorrow. And the amazing thing is, he hasn't been arrested.
Charged.
He hasn't been bothered. But yet, what he's doing is literally... proposing on video over and over, very insistently, we have to commit this crime. which obviously he could be prosecuted for. So something makes him special.
Did he actually go and was there on January 6th in the building?
I don't know. I know he was out January 5th, insisting that people needed to take it. I think he went to the building on January 6th, but I'm not clear on whether he went inside the building.
Jack, do you know?
He was trying to lead people to the Capitol. There's a ton of video on this.
But did he go inside?
See, I mean, this is the big thing.
He did not.
See, that's a key thing.
He looks like a cop.
Yeah,
I mean, the guy looks like a cop.
He may be a cop.
Guess who wrote stories about him defending him today? Does the New York Times or Axios ever defend a Trump supporter?
They want them all hung.
Yeah. If you go on right now today, articles came out this morning are 2 articles defending Ray Epps.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, yeah, he's definitely a Fed.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a Fed. Oh, my heavens. I mean, what the heck's going on, you know?
I mean, are you surprised that the feds are going to try to lead people into a trap?
Well, now there's cameras, and they don't seem to care if they used to, I think, JFK was an inside job as far as I'm concerned, but they hid that well. The internet didn't exist. I don't think that would have gone unsolved very long if, some of our social media communication was around then, which we have.
Jack, thanks for bringing the story up here tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Let's talk to David in New Mexico. David, you're on. Actually, stand by. I didn't notice the time. More here in moments. The number is 603-283-6160. We are nailed to that clock here on Free Talk Live. And, of course, the phones are still open for you. If you want to weigh in here, get your thoughts on the air in the remaining moments, you can do that. We've been talking about two-way radios and other communications options for you, like Matrix Chat and Mastodon social media. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
When I say Francis Ford Coppola, you think The Godfather, right? Have you tried his wines? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Where I live, Coppola wines are $12 or $13 a bottle, sometimes less on end caps. If you're shopping for vodka, remember it's merely vodka. All brands begin at an ethanol plant. Flavors aside, one big difference between brands is how fancy the bottle is, and those Belvedere and Chopin and Grey Goose bottles sure are works of art. It also matters how many times it was distilled. Browse the vodka aisle, and you'll see unfamiliar brands distilled 5, 6, 7 times. They get the job done nicely, and I say so after a rigorous series of tests. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power. But there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want in the remaining moments that are happening now at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Nobody, and Chris here in the studio tonight. As we've been discussing alternatives to communications, what got this started was a story that you have, Chris, from the people on the left complaining that some people who they don't like are using two-way radios.
They're not being censored enough, Ian.
Right. And at the same time, that led, of course, to a conversation about alternatives to use beyond just two-way radios, but using internet-based alternatives for communication like Mastodon for social media or Matrix for direct chat with people, which, of course, we run servers for both of those. You can go to social.freetalklive.com for the Mastodon server, and you can go to chat.freetalklive.com for the Matrix. Of course, you can do this yourself. You don't have to rely on us. You can have, if you don't know how to do, running your own server, have your geek friend who does know how to do it, set one of them up for you, and you can run one of these things yourself. You don't need to rely on some third party you've never met before. But while we were talking about it, on the Twitter platform, they have locked two fairly large accounts, the LPNH, Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, with over 22,000 viewers or followers, and Karlin Borchenko, the lady that's running for governor here in New Hampshire as a Libertarian this year. She just had her account locked, 72,000 followers. So for the next 12 hours, now it's not the longest lockout, but it still is a lockout, and they're being punished for tweeting a video of Joe Biden talking about the penalties for smoking crack cocaine, juxtaposed with video of his son, Hunter Biden, actually smoking crack.
Wow, I got to tweet that when I get home. I'll take the 12 hours.
So if you want to avoid that kind of stuff, you got to move off those platforms and you got to use your own, basically. So check ours out, social.freetalklive.com. We go to David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, David.
People on the left, you mean like communists? And what they're doing is quite obvious. And let me get your attention by sharing this with you. I read an autobiography of a World War II soldier. He was an officer in our army. His job was to be a liaison with the Russians when they were still our partners in the late 1940s, like 46, plus and minus. Mm-hmm. And he was working behind lines on their side of what they occupied, doing things that needed to be done. And so he witnessed some things. So here he's an officer staying in a nice hotel, as nice as they could be during the war or just after the end of the war, in occupied Poland. I don't know which city. And one night, and this is in the context of the government trying to take radio away from you, like walkie-talkies and CB. And the point is they want to make it so you can't resist martial law, like Jerry Nadler is doing. Jerry Nadler said today that next week you will see passed in the U.S. House of Representatives a bill that will outlaw all semi-automatic guns, which is all guns, basically.
What?
The exact quote by Jerry Nadler is, semi-automatic firearms have no place in people's homes.
And who is this? Is this a politician?
Well, the nice Jewish fellow, Jerry Nadler, yes, a representative. He's the chair of which committee? Judiciary, House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler.
Okay.
Anyway, they want you to not be able to communicate. They want you to not be able to have any firearms. Like I said, semi-automatic, that is the normal, everyday firearm is a semi-automatic.
Yep, that's true.
They are the norm, not the exception.
So you're saying they're going to pass, you're saying this guy, this politician, believes they're going to outlaw all guns in the United States. Would that be outlawing the sales or the possession of them?
Well, we have to pass the bill in order to read what's in it. It depends on whether it depends on whether they are going. It depends on whether they are going to. They'll probably start. I'm speculating. They'll probably start with the easiest thing, and that's to prevent future sales. The next step after that, if you succeed at that, is saying, oh, well, you know what? We need to register the ones that are already out there, but you can keep them. And then the next thing is to, oh, you know what? And it keeps going from there. So back to the autobiography. And this is why it matters, ladies and men who care about their ladies. He was looking out his hotel room window down at the street a few floors down one early evening, and he noticed the sentries, 2 Russian sentries that were stationed at the intersection, like we're at most intersections, and there was a woman walking down the street toward these sentries. They stopped her, they raped her, they shot her, and they threw her in the trash can. And that was during martial law. Who is going to stop them? Nobody had any firearms. No, and they had no way. The government was controlling, the occupying Russians were controlling the communications. And back to the radio that they want to take from you. They do not want you to be able to resist martial law that they will put you under, and then they will rape you and shoot you and throw you in the trash can, ladies, and that's why it matters.
Yep, that's a fact. Thank you for the call tonight, David. Appreciate hearing from you. So I think I found the story about what he's referring to. The bill in question is an assault, quote-unquote, assault weapons ban bill. The proposal would make it unlawful for a person to import, sell, manufacture, or transfer certain semi-automatic rifles, including those that can accept a detachable magazine and have at least one of the following military features: pistol grip, forward grip, folding, telescoping, or detachable stock, grenade launcher, barrel shroud, or threaded barrel. The bill has 211 co-sponsors and is moving ahead.
That does sound like pretty much all of them. I mean, those are some common features.
Out of curiosity, what's the number of reps we got in? This is the Feds, I'm assuming.
The number of reps we have? Who's we?
Well, yeah, good point.
0.
How many reps are there in the
535, I think?
No, it's 435.
And then 100 senators?
100 senators, 9 Supreme Court justices, and 1 president. That's the entire ownership of the United States.
Still a pretty high number.
Why were you asking? Just curious?
Well, 200 co-sponsors?
211 co-sponsors.
211 co-sponsors.
Which is probably most of the Democrats.
Yeah.
It says here none of them are Republicans.
Okay.
In this case. Now, whether or not that's going to get through the Senate would be another question. We'll see. I mean, there's a million bills that get filed, and a lot of them don't
Well,
go anywhere.
from a secession point of view, this is really important because basically they're negating the Second Amendment with this bill. And I remember posting a couple years ago in a group of New Hampshireites who were not libertarian by any stretch. They were conservative gun owners, and I said, if the feds got rid of the Second Amendment, would you be down to secede? And I put a poll about it. 95% said yes.
Yeah, well, maybe that would push some people over the edge.
I think it would push a lot of people over the edge. I mean, either secession or civil war.
Right.
And I prefer just secession. Just walk away. You don't need to have a war.
I don't want to fight. Yeah.
It would be interesting for them to pass it, just not by enough to matter effectively.
If it passes, then it's going into effect.
Sure.
What do you mean?
Constitutional, presumably the Supreme Court or some court
could overturn
it if it's just a law.
But it would take years for that to happen, right? Like it's not gonna. They're not going to overturn it the next day.
It's a good question.
They might accept an emergency petition because, I mean, obviously what they're doing here is completely, I mean, it's like beyond the pale, unconstitutional.
But the point that I'm making is simply that it might be useful, for independence of New Hampshire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I see that. Let's go to Timothy. He's in Oregon. Timothy, go ahead. Timothy in Oregon going once. Timothy in Oregon going twice. All right. I mean, more independence, certainly better. Of course, there's probably going to be plenty of conservatives that when this happened, they'll just wait on the court. They're not going to lift a finger to support independence. They'll trust that the court's going to.
They won't.
They think the court's their friend right now.
You're right. But you
Roe
know
versus
what?
Wade.
You know what though? It happening just because they're not the ones proposing it doesn't mean we can't propose it, and doesn't mean they won't vote on it.
Well, time will tell. We'll see how this shakes out. Certainly, the independence movement in New Hampshire is going to continue with or without this particular bill. And certainly we intend to continue to grow that. We want more people who care about independence to make a move here, who care about liberty to migrate here to New Hampshire. Take your time, take an hour out of your day and watch the 101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire. It's a great little documentary that goes over some really persuasive reasons why, if you're a libertarian and you care about actually winning and having success, you ought to be here with the largest migration of freedom-loving people on the planet. Go to 101reasonsfilm.com, check that out, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalk.